wine. I don't. My wine's in the other room.
Well, I mean, do you have enough? I want to make sure. And if
How long are we going to talk?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes one guy I talked to, we only stopped because we ran out of wine. We were having such a good time, but I don't want to take up. I don't want to presume to take up that much of your time. And if you
Yeah.
need to reload, you can always. It'll be fun to say. And Jill has now gone to refill her glass. So
Okay.
I just poured a little splash to taste, so I'm not really like
Oh, okay.
fully reloading.
Okay. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, ready? Ruben Schwartz here from Sales for Nerds, kicking off the Sales for Nerds podcast. If you feel more comfortable with SQL than sales calls, more at home writing test suites than proposals, more interested in crunching numbers than shaking hands, if you think networking should be about routers rather than cocktails with strangers, if you're more interested in debating code editors than negotiating deals, but somehow you ended up responsible for some of those sales and marketing activities, this is the podcast for you. Welcome, folks. Tonight I'm really excited to have Jill Konrath with us. She is the author of some of the best-selling sales books of all time, Snap Selling, Agile Selling, and Selling to Big Companies. And she recently wrote More Sales, Less Time, Surprisingly Simple Strategies for Today's Crazy Busy Sellers, which was selected as one of 2016's top sales books. And if you haven't come across Jill, I'm not sure how you would have not done that. She's got over 250,000 LinkedIn followers. She's been named one of the top 7 sales influencers of the 21st century. And I know that when I was getting into sales, I came across her very quick, short, helpful to the point, 2 to 3 minute sales videos. And if you're trying to figure out where to get started in sales, you can't really beat that. So Jill, welcome to Sales for Nerds.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here tonight.
Jill, important questions first. What is in your glass?
It's some sort of white wine that
Some
was
sort
in
of
the
white wine.
refrigerator. It was in the refrigerator.
That's a good selection process. Does it taste good?
It tastes really good, yes.
Okay.
And this is the first interview I have ever done with a glass of wine, just so you know.
Okay. Well, hopefully not the last. I've been on a little bit of a Pinot streak lately, and so tonight I've got a Franciscan Estate Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley 2013. It is nice and tasty.
Oh, I'm jealous watching you drink that.
See, this is the problem with the Skype interviews. We can't actually share.
I know.
So, anyway, I will try not to make you too jealous, but it's really, really good. And as always, it's something that I probably bought for like $15 at Costco. I think I splurged a little bit on this one. So, Jill, how did you get into sales?
I got into sales through a back door. It was not something I ever wanted to do. In fact, I found it to be the most distasteful, disgusting, manipulative, sleazy, gross profession
You're going to fit
of
right in with
anything.
this audience, I think.
I mean, seriously, I thought it was awful. And I had come up with a business plan. I was a high school teacher at that time. I had come up with a business plan, roped some friends in, and we went to SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Execs at that time, and presented our plan to a retired marketing guy from General Mills. And he said, "This is really a good idea. It is really timely. And which one of you three is going to be doing the sales?" And I remember leaning forward with a glare in my eye and staring at this man and saying, "I thought you said this was a good idea." And he said, "It is, Jill, but somebody has to sell it." And I looked at my two friends, and they weren't looking at each other. They were both looking at me. And I literally said to the guy, I said, "We're going to have to talk about this." And so about 3 weeks later, I said to my friends, "Okay, I will do it. I will do it for 1 year, and I will learn everything that is humanly possible to know about this thing called sales that I find so disgusting. I'll learn it in 1 year, and then I'm done. I'm never going to do sales again." And that was a whole lifetime ago.
And so what happened? Was there a moment where you said, hey, this actually isn't what I thought it was? Or
Oh,
did it just
yeah.
happen gradually?
I happened to get hired by a really good company. When I finally decided to leave education and get myself a sales job, I got hired by a company called Xerox, who at that time had one of the top training programs in the entire world.
Right?
And from the very get-go, they taught you that sales is not about the pitch, it's not about the manipulation, it's about the conversation. And your job is to structure the conversation and be a leader in the conversation. Your job is to understand your customers in great depth. Your job is to never push, but to invite them in and to experiment and try and bring them value and everything. And to me, it was such a different thing than I expected. I actually found it challenging and fun, which shocked the living daylights out of me. And I never went back to my business idea because I actually found it stimulating and I found it interesting. I mean, there were challenges all the time, and I love solving problems. To me, it's the solving of the problem that's the fun part, not the repetition of it.
Okay.
And so anytime something new came out, like you had a new competitor or the market conditions changed or you had some bad press on your own product, it was like, oh God, another challenge. And it really stimulated the creativity in me to try to figure out, now what do I do? Now what do I do? It's a big puzzle.
Now, I feel like you skipped a step or two because you went from sales is terrible and horrible to I just got a sales job at Xerox, which seems like there's like something in the middle that happened that said it would be okay to do that.
That was me finally saying, okay, to my friends, I will take a sales job for 1 year.
Oh, just to learn how to do sales for the other company.
Just to learn. Yeah, just to learn. And I happened to get hired by a really good company. and was shocked with what I learned and never went back to work with my friends because it was such a growth opportunity at where I was at. And I was just so stimulated learning about all these different things that I had no idea what they were about.
Got it. Okay. And then how did you just decide eventually to strike out on your own?
Well, I have a low boredom threshold. That rings true at all to anybody. And as soon as something becomes repetitive and mundane, I need a new challenge. And so I actually left sales because I now understood how to sell what I was selling too well, and they weren't bringing out anything new, and I was bored. And so I started my own company, and I created a consultancy that focused on new product launches. And so I was always working with companies that were bringing out something new. I was going after new markets. I mean, I was working with like 8 or 10 companies at a time, and I was selling to all these different organizations and buyers. I mean, I was learning and overwhelmed with learning, but it was so fun because I was always being challenged.
Got it. I think I have a little bit of the same mindset in the sense that it's really fun to figure out how something needs to get solved. And then once you figured it out, I remember actually this weekend I was working on something. I didn't know how to do it, and I figured out how to do it. And I didn't even go do it. I closed my laptop and did something else because I'm like, okay, now that's a solved problem. I'll come back and figure that out later. Right? It's just a cleanup task at that point.
Yes, right.
So I think something that was really interesting about your latest book, and certainly go read the other books. They're great sales foundations. But the thing that struck me about this last book was, I think for a lot of the folks, especially who come from a technical background, we still wear some of the technical hats, and we're trying to wear these sales and marketing hats that we don't really know how to wear. And so the sense of being overwhelmed with all different tasks and never being able to get anything done, I'm certainly not trying to say that the folks who are out there carrying a quota and selling full-time, they have plenty of their own challenges, but in a way I think there's the multitasking aspect of it gets even harder when you sort of start a company and you have technical responsibilities and sales and marketing responsibilities. So a lot of what you were saying resonated with me. And I think the other thing that was nice reading this book was, oh my goodness, even Jill Konrath faces these issues. Even Jill Konrath struggles with some of this stuff. So I just want to say thanks for making me feel like I'm not alone, like I'm not the only one, and that some of this stuff is hard. And in many ways, we're fighting human nature, especially with the way technology works today.
That to me was probably the most profound. I mean, for the last 5 years, probably, I've really felt myself struggling. I mean, I have been so overwhelmed trying to get it all done. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be on my cell phone. I feel like I'd roll out of bed. Did anybody leave me a message? And
right.
and I'm eating breakfast or coffee, and I'm quickly going through my messages and deleting as many as I can, as fast as I can, and trying to stay on top of it. And the same thing happens all through the day. And at the night, it's 11 o'clock at night, and I'm getting ready for bed, and I'm checking email. It's like, what the heck is wrong with me? And I'll be watching TV, and I've got my computer on at the same time. It's like I'm never done. And I could feel, this may sound weird, but, because I spent a lot of time as a creator, creating content and studying problems and stuff, I could literally also feel the impact on my brain and my ability to think strategically and to think creatively. And I could really feel that I was worn down from a mental perspective. And anybody who's out there who requires, good thinking in order to do their job should be really aware that this overwhelmed feeling that we're all facing today is taking its toll on our ability to do our job well. And it's actually taking us longer to do the same things just because we're so caught into the digital aspect of it and living in this digital world the whole time. It was shocking to me to discover the research that was behind all that too.
Yeah, and I actually highlighted a passage from your book that says the quality of our thinking is a huge differentiator to our work, yet few sellers realize just how important it truly is. Our always-on, distraction-filled work life hurts the quality of our thinking. And that was something that I've noticed. Obviously there's a lot of pressure on time. I've got 2 young kids, and we've got all the, last week, take your kid out of school because he's sick and so on. And so just getting the sheer amount of blocks of time I thought was the struggle. But that's not really the struggle, because if I have say a 3-hour block or an 8-hour block of actual time, I can do a week's worth of work compared to like all the reactive firefighting when your thinking isn't clear, as you're saying.
Yes, I mean, to me, I was astounded how I felt the impact, and everything was harder to come up with better ideas. And I really believe that the quality of our thinking, and like you said, the quality of our thinking, the quality of our ideas, what we bring to their insights that we bring to our customers, our ability to solve the challenges that they're facing, I truly believe that that's what brings us value. Otherwise, we're a commodity. So here we are, and our brains are what differentiates us in the marketplace, and we are scattering them everywhere. Right. We're doing everything in little bite-sized chunks, and we're not allowing good thoughts to form. In fact, we're sitting in front of the damn computer all day long, right?
Right.
And a lot of technical people they're on the computer all day long, and that doesn't even allow us to get to our higher level of thinking, which is the area when we, for example, when you take a shower in the morning, or if you go for a walk during the day, where you get away from your desk and suddenly you're just kind of clear-minded, you're not thinking about anything, and that's when the really important and good ideas, pop in, or that's when a fresh approach to a complex problem you're trying to solve, that's when that enters, and you have a whole new way of looking at it that you didn't see before. And you could have sat at your desk for 10 hours straight and tried to figure that thing out logically. But removing yourself from this digital environment and giving your brain the rest it needs, and literally, I mean, the brain is a muscle, it needs the rest to rejuvenate. And when you move away from the desk and do something either fun or just activity-based, where you're walking or something, your brain goes into a different type of thinking and finds new solutions. But we sit at our desk, or we've got a few minutes free, and what do? We jump on our cell phone, boom, 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 and check things out. I mean, it's disgusting.
But I thought you highlighted some really interesting stuff about the amygdala in the book that sort of makes a lot of sense in terms of us being in the wrong place. And I was wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail about that.
Well, the amygdala is the part of the brain that is, the fear factor, and it's the one that's kind of scanning our entire environment to see if there's anything out there that I should be concerned about. And I mean, it's the deepest, oldest part of our brain. And so the amygdala gets rewarded when it notices something new. I mean, that's its job, to keep on the lookout. And literally, when we go online, unless we are very, very focused and have a lot of willpower and self-control, our amygdala jumps into the forefront and goes, oh, we're online. There's all this new stuff out here. I better take a look. Let me come to the forefront. And so what do? We check our email. Every day I get an email from LinkedIn, and the LinkedIn email always has interesting articles. It just always has interesting articles. And I click on one article, and I go, oh, this is interesting. And then in the middle of that article, they have links to some research that they did. And then I click on the research study. And then I'm over there. And then suddenly my brain goes, oh, Jill, you're traveling to Boston this week. I wonder what the weather is like. So I pick up my cell phone, because I'm using my computer for that. I pick up my cell phone, look for look for the weather in Boston. And as I'm there, what do I see? I see something about a sinkhole that swallowed 2 cars in Florida, And then I watched that video. I mean, what in the world just happened to me? I just went on to check my email and do stuff. But that amygdala, every time it saw something new, it said, let's check this out. Let's check this out. And the brain actually rewards the amygdala and says, good job. Let me give you a little dopamine because that was nice. That was really good. You found new stuff. And then dopamine is a feel-good hormone. We feel good, but it's also addictive. And so we want more. So when we're not on our cell phone, it's like, right now I'm not on my cell phone. I'm talking, I go, oh God, somebody texted me right now. Bing, 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 I should be looking at that kind of stuff. And so we're just scattered. We're scattered all the time because we've got all these notifications and pop-ups and all these things pinging and binging us. And once we get in distraction mode, we actually self-distract just as often too. So it's like our brain cannot form a good, cohesive, smart thought because it's like all over the place.
So the way we evolved to avoid being eaten by lions is actually terrible for us right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
we did not evolve to be working in a digital environment. And that is the biggest challenge facing most of us who do spend time online. We can easily fritter away an hour or 2 a day, easily, just on stuff related to distractions or the extended time it takes us to do everything else.
And one thing I noticed is even if I'm being very disciplined about only being online for the sales research or customer related stuff, even all the quote unquote productivity tools, by the time you get done using them all, you might have, like if you're not very focused about why you're doing something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just like going on LinkedIn can be a sinkhole, I mean, you're going on LinkedIn, you have a very specific purpose. You're looking up, you're working with targeting a company you want to go after and talk to multiple people. You start, binging around on LinkedIn, and the next thing you know, even you could waste an hour because you don't know exactly what you're looking for. You're reading all this stuff. Your kind of mind is wandering over here, and literally you go down a rabbit hole someplace else.
Right.
It all works together, and having one app open leads you to the other app. I mean, I think some of the research I read that simply having your email open doubles the amount of distractions that you will go after in an hour. Just simply having email open. Like, wow.
And you had sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, then the other thing that I read too, and is, the research too, is that I think it's like 72% of people respond to an email in 6 or 7 seconds. I shouldn't say respond. They attend to an email in 6 or 7 seconds from when it arrives in their inbox, which means they have their alerts on. They go, oh, look, there's a new bing there. Somebody's emailed me. I have to check it out because it might be business, or it might be a problem I need to solve. And so we just go look at it. And while we may not take a lot of time to look at it, what we're doing is we're actually stopping the thinking that we're doing on whatever we're working on at that moment in time, checking it out over there. Maybe it's only 15 seconds, 20 seconds. It does take 10 to 20 times the length of the interruption to get yourself back to where you were. Now you've wasted, 2 to 3 minutes, and you're finally getting your brain back in. And then another email comes in. You're like, oh, look, here we go again. Let's repeat this cycle of not being fully present, not getting our job done, and spending our whole day distracted. And that's what's happening to us.
And you had a great experiment in the book where you looked at how many emails actually required a response. And you weren't looking at 6 to 7 seconds. You said, how many emails did I really need to respond to under 2 hours? And you counted them up, and in 1 week there were 0.
Zero.
It's like, what are we doing to ourselves? We're making our own choices here.
We don't even know that we're doing that, though. That's the thing. We don't even realize. And sometimes we think we're really being good people because we're being responsive. And by the way, every time we're responsive, we get a little shot of dopamine that's sent to our body. It goes, nice job. Nice job, Ruben. You responded fast. Nice job, Ruben. You responded fast. So we're getting hooked on this dopamine high all the time. And we're not getting our good work done. Certainly not our deep thinking that we need to really differentiate.
And typically not our quota and not our strategic goals. And at the end of the week or the year, and we say, gosh, I don't think most of us are measuring ourselves on, did I respond to emails promptly? Right? Like, oh, what a great year I had. I responded to most of my useless emails really efficiently.
Yeah, I did. I responded to all those emails that didn't need to be responded to. I got to them in 10 seconds or less, but I got them off my to-do list, so I was really a good person. No, we're not focusing on what matters, and that's because we're allowing the distractions to control our life. And so the first thing that we have to do in order to, increase our productivity and to do the quality of work that we actually are capable of doing is we have to control the distractions. And we can't, willpower alone is insufficient. I have to say, I'm a perfect example. I fought, all this, I'm not going to look, I'm not going to check my email. I mean, I fought all this stuff for a long time. And finally, I just went, I got to put barriers up and firewalls around me because I can't fight this all the time. I mean, it's my natural human inclination to go down that slippery slope and to do stuff I'm not supposed to. So what do I need to do to make my environment conducive to doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing, the kind of work that matters in my job?
This is one of the things I loved about the book, because you go through your experiments and you don't just say, and then I decided that I was never going to check email except between blah, right? Like you sort of detail a bunch of things and you're like, and by the way, after 3 days, this was a total fiasco. So I had to try something else. And I think that's really useful. And just the notion that, one, you can't rely on your willpower. And two, what works for you may not work for me or someone else, but you have the freedom to experiment, to design your systems the way that's going to work for you. And some of the experiments are going to work and some of them aren't, and that's okay.
Right. And for me, it was like the whole book, I mean, I didn't write it to write the book. I did the experiments to save my life, I think I would say, to get some time back so I could do other things. I mean, the reality is my goal in doing it was first to reclaim some time, but secondarily, I mean, I really wanted to earn the same amount of money working 30 hours or less a week. I mean, was that even possible? But that was a goal that was a secondary goal that took me a while to get to because I had to control my addictions first, and I was addicted to all these other things that we were talking about. And so I had to control that. And once I could, live in a more distraction-free environment, and I never can live, I don't think any of us can live in a totally distraction-free environment, but we can significantly reduce the number of distractions coming at us all the time, and we can reduce the number of times during the day when we allow these distractions in. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of it. But to me, the very first step was to, recognize my own powerlessness. I feel like an alcoholic talking. I'm drinking wine. I was
Cheers.
Powerless in the face of all these addictive behaviors of mine online. And I'll have another drink too, another sip. But I actually had to admit that I was powerless over that, and then put in place those firewalls. And to me, the firewalls were technology. I mean, I leveraged technology for the most part to regain control of my life.
Got it. And you said something really interesting in your book, which is, unless we live by design, we live by default. And I think a lot of people struggle with this because there's so many outside forces saying you should do this. I want your attention, whether it's an email or a link, or it's something broader, like you're supposed to have a certain kind of house and drive a certain kind of car. There's sort of a set of assumptions that we absorb from our environment that if we don't actively plan around, we're going to be in thrall to that. Yeah.
I mean, it's just really easy for that to happen. I mean, and I've been there from a professional standpoint where other people's goals of what they wanted in life were, I took them in and thought that I needed to be just like those people too. It didn't really work well very much for me. But also, I think that, just my day-to-day behavior and just stopping and saying, whoa, what is this that really matters in my life? What is it that really matters in my work? And how can I best spend my time to get there as opposed to just getting up and going to work? Mm-hmm. What is it I really need to do? What is the highest impact that I can have during the course of the day that will move me further along in my career and to where my goals really are?
And you had sorry, go ahead.
No, Well, it was a profound thought to me that here I am, I'm frittering away my day on all this trivial stuff that makes me feel good, but it's not progressing me to what really matters. And so to really stop and focus on, what are the things that I can do that really, really, really make a difference. And, it's different with everybody, but for me, it was really clear because of where I am in my career and what I'm doing, that writing is the number one thing that matters. If I write and create content, whether I write a book or whether I write an ebook or whether I write an article, it's writing that gets me out in front of the people who can hire me. It is the most important thing I can be doing. So I had to really structure my time and stuff around writing and figuring out how can I create more space for me to write. And by the way, writing requires no interruptions, because the minute I'm interrupted when I'm trying to write, I lose a half an hour. Mm-hmm. I don't just lose that time. I lose the good thing that I was into, so, I really had to be judicious about protecting my writing time. But I think for people who are running a business as well as trying to do sales and marketing, I really think that they need to say, what is it that I really need to do? And honest to God, if you don't have enough prospects in your pipeline, you're not going to have a business for long. Mm-hmm. Let's just be real frank about it, that if you are an entrepreneur, you've got a startup, you're a professional who is, running a consultancy of something, if you don't have clients, you're not going to make enough money to stay in business, and you're going to be going back and working for somebody else and maybe not doing what you're doing. So literally the thing that I would say for most people who are, listening to this broadcast is that prospecting, and not just prospecting, but the whole concept of how do I meet the right people? How do I target and find the right people who have the highest likelihood of wanting or needing the services that I provide is really an urgent and necessary thing to do. And then once you have prospects, to move them through, to have the conversations that help them decide if buying or working with you makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's a critical path. And I think a lot of times we fill up our to-do list with a bunch of things that are good, maybe even mm-hmm. great, but they're not truly critical path. And I think one part of the book that really struck me was, yes, obviously we want to do away with distractions that we say, gosh, I just wasted an hour looking at cat videos or whatever. But where you said, hey, here's where I cut out all these parts of my business that were really important to me, but not as important as writing. And some things I just decided I was never going to do, even though I would love to. And some things I said, maybe I'll get to do them later. But having that clarity, I think, is hugely important for a lot of people. And can you talk a little bit about how you figured out kind of what your one thing was and how you figured out how to get rid of some of the other obligations?
Well, wow. That's a hard question to answer right now, because that was about a year and a half ago that I was going through that mental process. So it's a little hard to answer.
Well, now you have clarity, right? Now it's easy.
That's interesting. Yes, and I've been going through some personal issues lately with deaths in the family and elderly parents. And by the way, that clears your plate even more, because I have spent more time doing things that are non-work related in the last 3 months, that I have literally shoved everything off my plate that wasn't essential. And I am just right now just dealing with the what needs to get done right now. So I don't wish that on anybody, where you have to do that. But the reality of it is, it's really important to say, is this really going to lead me where I want, or is just something I'd like to do? And for me, I just crossed off the it'd be nice to do's. It'd be nice to do. There's so many things that I wanted to do or it'd be nice to do. And, you go through your to-do list, and a big to-do list it wears you out. Just having 150 things on my to-do list is exhausting. Right now I'm to the point where my to-do list it includes writing again right now, because I've been on a break from writing, but it also includes my website. And I have a big stuff on the website, but I'm tackling it in priority order. And it's like, which of all the pages on my website are the most critical for me to update right now.
Right.
I mean, I'm literally saying what's most critical to update now and what can I let go. But I'm just being real judicious because I don't have all the time in the world. By the way, I am behind right now where I should be because of all the family stuff I've been dealing with. But that makes me even more rigorous in my sorting.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's funny you mentioned the to-do list because I had quoted that as well. And I wanted to ask you, is there any rule of thumb for how many items should be on your to-do list?
Well, I think, the one question that I feature in the book is a question from The One Thing. And it's, what's the one thing that you should be doing such that if you do it, everything else in your life is easier or simpler? To me, that's like a profound question to be asking from that book. But when it gets to the to-do list, if you have a whole lot on it, it's a burden. It's just a cognitive burden, and you're carrying it. It's stressful. So the reality is you shouldn't have a lot on your to-do list. You should have the most important stuff. And every day you should have maybe the top 3 things that you need to get done today.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get done. And by the way, when you start doing that and say, what are the top 3 things that if I get done today, I'll feel like I've had a great, great day. And if you can do that, just think how you'd feel, as opposed to all those stupid little things that are nagging away at you going, Ruben, do this. Ruben, you should be doing that. Ruben, all that. Leave me alone, But if you can get the big things done, you walk out of that office at the end of the day and you go, oh, man, that was important. I got that done.
It's funny because when I read the book, I highlighted that thing about the 150 items. I'm pretty sure my to-do system has more than 150 items. I need to get that trimmed way down before I talk to Jill. And of course I haven't. Yeah. So
no, you haven't. Well, see, and I have I've got my website to-do list because it really needs updating. It's been 2 years since I updated it. And there's all these things I want to add and change. But that's a separate to-do list, and it's on my website thing. And I'm talking to my web people in May. I've already made that agreement. We're talking in May. So I've got the list of things I want to do, not bugging me because it's in May.
Got it. So you've assigned it a time in the future, yes. So it's out of your head.
It's out of my head. It's all written down. I think of the things, I put them down on that list. And when May comes and I'm working with my website people, I will be pulling out that list and we will be starting here. We'll be starting on what I've defined as my most important priority, that will change my website and make it better.
And it's funny because you're just segueing perfectly into the things that I'm like, hey, you know what I'd love to talk about is your calendar and what you did, how you changed your approach to calendaring. Because I know it's a challenge I have, and from talking to people, I think it's a very common challenge. Can you talk a little bit about what your calendar used to look like and what you've done after sort of being able to map your tasks into your calendar a little bit more?
Yeah, my calendar in the past used to reflect anything that I had scheduled. It might be talking with you tonight, would you be on my calendar? Or it would be, meetings with clients or talking with prospects, and or it would have, it would just have conversations or meetings scheduled, or when I was speaking, but anything where it was like an obligation. But what it didn't have is my commitment to doing the things that mattered. Mm-hmm. It didn't have any of that. So what would happen, I'd get up in the morning and see I had a meeting at 10, and I'd want to have some time to prep for the meeting. So what did I do before 10? I farted my time away, and then I spent a little time prepping and didn't get into it. And then I didn't have another meeting till at noon. And so my day was like that. But when I got into actually scheduling the most important things on my calendar, it really, really helped me get a whole lot more done. And by the way, when I talk about that, this afternoon, I had time scheduled on my calendar to prepare to finish up tomorrow's newsletter. It was on my calendar for an hour to finish up tomorrow's newsletter. And then I had another hour to prepare Thursday's newsletter, but that was on, and that was something I never would put on my calendar before because it was just something I'd squeeze in between my meetings. Yes. But no, this was important and this had to be done. And then I'd block in things like research, and I'd actually put some times on my calendar from 8:30 to 11:30. I'm going to be doing research, or from 1 to 4, I'm going to be working on my presentation for this company. And I never put that on there before because it was always like I was just going to do it I don't know, sometime when I had enough time.
Right. There's a bunch of space in between meetings. I'll work on my task list in between these
Yeah,
meetings.
but I never had that focused time where I could say no between 1 and 3 o'clock. I'm actually putting together because I'm doing a webinar um, next week and tomorrow afternoon from 1 to 3. I am working on the webinar, and I'm not giving it too much time because I've done this webinar before, but I'm working on putting together the PowerPoints and the sequencing for the webinar, and it's on my calendar to do it because
Right.
it is something that I need to do. It's not, I'm going to get to it in between all that other crap that's on my calendar.
And I think that's something that I've certainly trying to do a better job with. Right. I would look at my weeks and I'd have all this stuff in my calendar and I'd look at my to-do list and my really important tasks and I'd say, gosh, I didn't finish what I was supposed to do. Well, how much time did I spend on what I said was really important versus how much time did I
Shocker.
spend on other stuff?
Shocker.
Right. And what do you know? I didn't do the things that I was supposed to do because I was
I
doing other
know.
stuff.
I know. It's kind of weird how that happens, isn't it?
It seems obvious once you start doing it, but it for some reason it takes a good knock in the head sometimes
Yeah.
to figure that out.
I think too, though, for people, those of us who are in thinking type professions, I mean, I really think we need to allow ourselves sufficient time to actually get into good thinking, and because we cannot do it. And I mentioned some statistics in the book where if you're constantly being interrupted, a woman's IQ goes down 5 points and a guy's IQ goes down. Do you remember how many points?
We don't have enough IQ points to even understand these questions. But I'm guessing we have a harder problem with multitasking.
Yeah, a guy's IQ goes down 15 points if he's constantly bouncing between task and task. I mean, we can't afford to give up those smarts by bouncing and
No, some
because
of
our
us
brain
definitely
is
can't.
no, none of us can afford to give it up. I mean, not even five points is a killer, in today's competitive environment, and so we just really need to give ourselves sufficient time where we're not interrupted to do the work that is our highest value work.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you do any meditation?
I tried that, and that was one experiment that didn't work for me. I tried it, and what I do before I open, what I do, that sounds funny. What I do before I get started in the morning, I just sit quietly with my computer. And I don't open it up, and I don't turn it on. It's shut, it's on. I'm just sitting there, and I'm just allowing myself some quiet time to think about what matters, what really
Okay.
needs to get done today. And it's just quiet. I tried to meditate, and that was one experiment that didn't work for me. And I've talked to other people, and it's just really powerful for them. But I walk during the day, and I think it's a different form of meditation.
That's fair. And by the way, that is one practical tip from the book that I put into practice. I had a standing weekly meeting that I used to do like this over video conference. And finally, I was like, hey, we both know what we look like, and we both spend too much time in front of a computer. Why don't we do this as a phone call while we walk outside?
Yes, did you do that?
Yes, it's been great.
Awesome. It feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels much more natural than sitting in front of a computer.
Oh my God, I know. I walk a lot now during the workday, and it was interesting to me to finally realize that my walking was of high value, and that I had better conversations with people when I would walk, and that I came up with better ideas. And so I literally right now have, I say to myself, and I say to a lot of other people, walking is work. Don't think you have to sit in front of that stupid computer all day long in order to be working. Your best thinking, your best conversations come when you're moving.
And I wish that I had some way that I could take notes easily while I walk, because if I'm on a sales call like you, I have to take notes or I just forget things. And I haven't
Yeah.
figured out how to do that while I'm walking. That would make my
I don't
life so
do
much better.
I don't do sales calls or customer calls when I'm walking, period, because I have to take notes.
Right.
But I do take my, like when I'm walking just by myself, I take my phone along, and I every idea that pops into my head, I just record it.
Right. There you
And
go.
then send myself an email at the end of my walk, so I have kind of a synopsis of the brilliant ideas. And they're not always brilliant. Sometimes they're just very, don't forget to do this.
Right.
They're just very tactical and things that have to get done that I'd forgotten. But I do send it to myself when I get, when I'm done with my walk, so I have some ideas.
And I think that's much more how we're supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be out walking in the outdoors. We're not supposed to
I
be
agree.
bombarded with
No, there's
electronic
this.
messages.
Yeah, we may think we're pretty smart sitting in front of our computers, but we're still operating on an old brain that does not know how to live in this digital world and really wants us to move. I mean, when we move, we get more oxygen in our brain. We think at a higher level. We think different kind of thinking. It's not the linear thinking. It's the more creative thinking that allows us to solve deeper problems and to come up with new solutions.
And I think just there's something about being out in nature, and by nature, I don't even mean like national park. I mean just walking around my neighborhood and looking at the trees
I know. I
is really
know.
nice.
It's really nice. Yeah.
Now, just to flip things around a little bit, it's funny because this book is so focused on us, and you have this great phrase. You say we're bleeding time, which I think makes it really visceral. What's happening to us? But it is right. Time is like it really is a vital essence, and we are bleeding it out. And yet, as salespeople, we often view our job as to take over someone else's time. And one of the things I really liked about the book was you talk about, well, gosh, what if you could make it so much easier for the other person to buy that they didn't have to spend so much time and you didn't have to spend so much time, and you could sell the same thing, but everyone would have a much easier job of it. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Well, let me just say a couple things. I have been in sales for a long time, and so in a sense, for all you scientific nerds out there, I am I have deep, deep sales expertise, and so I feel changes before a lot of people, just because it's been such a fascinating topic for me. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I felt that customer overwhelm was becoming the biggest issue that I was seeing. Most recently, CEB, which is the big research company, has stated 2 years ago that the number one issue is buyer overwhelm. Okay, so I felt this overwhelm issue coming. In 2005 or 2010, Snap Selling is all about how to deal with an overwhelmed customer. And a few years ago, I felt this overwhelm myself in terms of I'm just dying. I can't get everything done. And last year at the big CEB conference, their new topic, their emerging topic of what they're finding is that sales rep overwhelm, seller overwhelm is the next big thing. So here we have a situation where both buyers and sellers are overwhelmed. And that is the state that we're living in right now. So we have, first of all, we can control ourselves in a sense if we take some steps to reduce our own overwhelm. But the reality is we're dealing with buyers who are swamped, and they're literally doing their best to do their jobs and get everything done, just like we are,
Right.
And if we think about that and we think, oh, these poor human beings are doing the best they know how, I mean, just like we are, what do we need to do to help them out? And how, where are they getting stuck? And by the way, a huge percentage of decisions never even go into a decision process because the buyer, the person who's starting to think about it, and maybe somebody you've had a conversation with goes, oh God, this is just so much work.
Right. It's one more thing they don't have time for.
And I just don't have time for it. And they're not willing to put themselves out there, even if it could save the company money or could save them time. They just go, oh, and then I'd have to go talk to this group, and oh, they hate each other, and oh my God, I'll never get them to agree. And they literally just abandon any change initiative because it feels so overwhelming. Or sometimes they get going and they can't get that buy-in, and they really believe it's important, and then they get stuck because somebody over there in finance is not, doesn't think it's a good idea,
Right.
or legal is giving them problems, or HR. But if we stop and thought about, this is normal. This is normal. These are issues that normal human beings are going to run into, and if we stopped and thought about what could we create that would help them, what could we do that would make their life easier? And there's so many things once you put your mind to it. For example, if you've got somebody who's interested, I mean, the first thing they're going to have to do is say, is there a sufficient business case here? Is there enough reason to go ahead? Well, what if you could create something that would help them understand the business value of change, or how to, figure out if they would if they would benefit from even progressing along this path.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so creating something along that way. What if you gave them something that and showed them or actually led meetings in their organization and saying, you're interested in this as a group. You know that this is an issue. You think that there's a business case to go ahead, but I know you all have different opinions. What about if we all got together and talked about what the issues are and came up with, see if it made sense as a group to do this? But boy, that's a facilitation job. That's not a sales job, but it could sure help our customers. And if you start thinking like that, where do they naturally get stuck? And what could I do or my company do? What could we create to help them get through these stuck points? We benefit because they move through these processes faster. And by the way, we benefit also because they go, oh, thank you so much for helping us.
Right.
We couldn't have gotten there without you. So we're differentiating ourselves through the process, not trying to pitch something that is overwhelming to them.
And I think something that I keep coming back to, because it's something that I've been working on for a long time, is, and if you do that and it's not a good fit, you find out in one meeting.
Oh,
instead
yeah.
Instead of spending a month trying to nurture something that's never going to close.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wins.
You have a real conversation. And you don't stop and think, how can I pitch them or sell them? How can we have a conversation that's real? And just see if it makes sense to go ahead. And if it doesn't, it doesn't right now. And that's okay.
I think you mentioned in the book some research that says that over half of the deals that actually get to a deal stage where they're forecast to close never end up closing.
Yeah,
right?
Scary,
people are optimistic and they don't want to disqualify their own pipeline.
I know.
And then they get to the end and they've spent who knows how, like even all that precious selling time that they were finally getting to deploy.
Yeah.
Half of it probably should have been gone past the first meeting.
I know, and because we want to hope that somebody will want our stuff, but the reality is, and I'm going to be real specific here too. The reality is, we have to, if we are hoping to be successful in this, we have to invest time to understand how to have good conversations about what really matters, and we have to invest time learning about what our customer cares about and how their KPIs and how they're measured and the issues and challenges they're facing. It's only then that we can have intelligent conversations with people that'll let you know early on if it's worth going ahead or not. And if it's not, it's okay to say, hey, it doesn't look like a good time right now. And it's okay for you to exit too.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. We're afraid.
Right. It always feels bad to take something. Like you feel like as long as it's in your pipeline, maybe there's some chance that it's going to close. And if you take it out, you're not going to work on it. And no one wants to do that. But
I know.
It's very liberating when you're like, you know what? This is never going to close. Let's just
right.
get rid of this. And I don't have to think about it ever again.
Right. And research also shows, too, from the sales perspective that in every business, there's sort of like an average sales time. Like an average sales time for one business might be 6 to 9 months. Another business might be 12 to 18 months, depending on what they're selling. That's the average time it takes from initial contact to a closed deal. And the longer things go outside that typical time frame, the less likelihood you have of closing. I mean, period. So if it's a normal, 9-month sales cycle, if you're at 12 months, the likelihood of them closing in the foreseeable future is slimmer. So you think it's got to be coming any day, but your chances of winning are going down by the second.
And your opportunity cost might have been 2 other deals that.
Oh, yes. It's painful to think about what you could have been working on.
Now, one of the other things that was really interesting to me, and I think actually kind of hopeful as somebody who, doesn't spend all his time selling, is that you said typically salespeople spend about 9 hours a week actually selling, and the top performers only spend a third more time than that.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
It's like, I don't need to actually spend 40 hours a week selling.
No.
If I can spend 10, I'm in good shape.
You're in good shape. Yes, 10 good hours. Maybe 12 good hours. And then you'd be a top performer, Isn't that interesting? That you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours and be cold calling all day. No.
And obviously,
You
I'm a
don't.
big fan of sort of, I've got my own technology to help make me as efficient as possible with this stuff, but it still feels like there's never enough time. And so the notion that, hey, even if I was a full-time sales rep, I'm not going to be selling 40 hours a week anyway.
No, I know.
And could I find, can I find an extra 40 hours a week for sales? No, but could I find an extra 2 or 3? That seems pretty doable, especially with some of the strategies in the book.
Right, right. And sometimes just an extra 2 or 3 hours of really good focused selling time. Better meetings, having better meetings. I mean, wow, having a better meeting. I mean, I think Forrester did some research and said that 86% or 80-some percent of executives said that their meetings with salespeople were like total failures. If they don't like their meetings, they don't invite you back. So let's talk about a waste of time. A waste of time is a bad meeting that you're not prepared for.
Sure.
It's a waste of time.
And
and if you would invest time prepping for meetings and focusing on the customer and their issues and challenges and planning questions and thinking about what they might need to help them understand the value of making a change. And it's always the value of making a change for the most part first. You'd have a much better chance of having a second meeting. And a second meeting could lead to a third meeting. But you got to buy one meeting at a time. And, you can't just go in and say, I'm going to tell them about our stuff. We got some really cool technology here. I'm a really good accountant. I'm going to let them know about all the services my company provides. Well, I'm telling you, virtually every accounting firm does the same services, and every mortgage lender sells mortgages, so why would they want to talk with you? And why in the world would they ever want to switch from the status quo?
Right. And the funny thing is, all you have to do is ask them why they want to take the meeting and what they want to talk about, right? And then
Yeah.
And you can be prepared. It's not like it's rocket science. And the thing that was interesting for me is asking that question actually really aligns well with my personality. Like going in and giving a sales pitch is not my thing at all.
Oh, I hate pitches.
But hey, why do you want to talk? What do you want to go over in our meeting? Okay, that sounds good. Oh, what about? Okay, great. And then I feel like I'm actually having a conversation with somebody, and it's easy. It doesn't feel like work.
Oh, I know. When I think I have to put on my sales hat and sell, I mean, here I've been in this profession my entire career now, and I think about putting on my sales hat, and it makes me sick to my stomach. Like you have to go in and sell them your training programs or sell them, your stuff. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't sell anything. I have conversations with intelligent people.
And try to help them.
Yeah, it's all about helping and making a difference.
Now, one thing that also stood out to me in this book, which is something that I think is part of almost every sort of self-help book, but I fight it because of my nature. Do you need more or are you good?
What?
Do you need more wine?
I hate to interrupt this.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying I can take a breather if you need more wine.
All right. I'll go refill. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay. All right. I will do the same, but I'm right here.
All right, so while Jill is refilling her glass, I'm going to attend to some things that I should do a better job of attending to, which is encouraging you guys to write reviews, give me some feedback. Some recent reviews. Eric Bison says, highly recommend. I love all the actionable and valuable information that Ruben and his guests bring in this show. If you're looking to get better at sales and marketing, I highly recommend listening. Tech Startup Guy writes, core of the rotation. After listening to the first 3 episodes, I can say this is definitely going to be a core part of my podcast rotation. It's heavy on the education and light on the BS that makes most business podcasts so boring. As a techie myself, I find the guests relatable and inspiring. Top marks. Thanks, folks. Keep them coming. Good, bad, ugly. Let me know what's going to be good for you, and it also is helpful for the show to help folks searching for this on iTunes. So now that Jill's refilled her glass, let's start back up again.
One of the things that's interesting about your book, and I think it's something that I've heard in other sort of productivity books that I fight with every ounce of my being, is the notion that you read these things and you're like, oh my goodness, there's 20 things I need to change and then my life will be better. And you try to change 20 things and it just falls completely flat. It's all the books say you got to pick one thing at a time and build that habit. And then when it's in place, you do the next one and so on. And you mentioned that in your book as well. And I'm wondering sort of how did it go? Because you were doing a lot of different things all together. And if I had to start somewhere, where should people start?
Well, let me just say you have to start with distractions. Number
Okay.
one, you have to start with controlling the distractions and putting up the firewall around yourself, and even just noting how you're spending your time online and having a benchmark there. I mean, in today's digital environment, to do anything else is stupid. We have to protect ourselves first because we have a human inclination to get sucked in. But after that, it really comes down to starting to, to focus on what matters. I mean, just starting to really think about, what are those things that if you do will really, truly, truly make a difference. I think that's essential. I found it very, very hard to change. I resisted it in every bone of my body. There were days I hated being myself because I tried so damn hard to be productive, and it was such hard work to avoid my natural tendencies. I was exhausted at the end of the day, and I literally didn't know what to do. I mean, I thought, how am I going to change? This is just too much. I do so many things wrong.
Listen, folks, this is Jill Konrath admitting all this stuff.
Yeah, but I'm a human being, and I'm in a digital world, and I'm getting splattered all over the place, And I know, I'm not sure if you're talking about the Time Master thing right now, if you want me to talk about that, what I did there, or what?
Well, I mean, I was kind of leaving it open-ended to you, but I know you did start with tracking your time, which seems like a useful exercise.
It was. Rescue Time is a great app if people haven't used it. Rescue Time is great. Another app that I found, extraordinarily helpful was Freedom, freedom.io, and freedom.io is an app that prevents me from going online or on some very specific sites, and it literally forces me to focus on what I think is important. Okay, so I've got that thing I'm preparing, that webinar I'm preparing tomorrow afternoon. It's like, oh, I can distract myself in the middle of that webinar, and I can come up with a really good reason as I'm prepping it to go check my email. I mean, I come up with all these reasons, and Freedom will, prevent me from doing things like that. It just will prevent me. And so it's almost like, oh, cripes, I have to do it now. But once I get past the have to do it now, then I am okay.
Another sort of an observation that I wanted you to reflect on, which is one thing I notice, is that sometimes when I sort of feel like I'm stalled, it's because I know sort of the big picture of what I'm supposed to do next, but I'm not sure of the specific action I'm supposed to take next. Yeah. And so I kind of spiral around, and then my mind is like craving some kind of distraction to get me out of this uncertainty.
Oh yeah, to stop. Yes, it's like that's what I found with myself, that when I ran into a real problem and something that really needed thinking about, that was when I was most likely to distract myself, which is what you're saying too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think what I've tried to coach myself to do, not always successfully, is say, okay, I know that I'm now in that state.
Yes.
And I can go in one of two directions. I can, I'm not going to solve the problem instantly, but I can either pretend it's not there, or I can try to break it down into smaller steps.
Into smaller steps.
Then when I have a path, it's easier to walk down the path.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I talk about in the book too is the Pomodoro technique, which I've really found helpful. And I don't know if you've used that at all.
I have. I don't use it as religiously as I should, but describe it for people in case they don't know what it is.
Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato, and it's named the Pomodoro technique because an Italian guy created it, and they had a timer in his kitchen that was made out of a tomato. It looked like a tomato timer. But anyway, the Pomodoro technique is, it's for those things that you have trouble starting or getting going on, like it's a big project and you just can't get going, or maybe it's a big project and you need to break it down to its component steps first before you can actually get going. But the hard part is the getting going part. Mm-hmm. And so with the Pomodoro technique, all it is you set the clock for 25 minutes and you say to yourself, okay, you have 25 minutes to work on this thing. 25 minutes, that's it. 25 minutes, And And that's how you allow yourself. And when the timer goes off, the Pomodoro, you stop and you take a 5-minute break. And then you can come back if you want and continue working on this. But what it does is the brain itself is a protector of us as human beings, and it doesn't want us to feel, bad, and it doesn't want us to have to, like struggle with something. And so it says to you, you don't have to do it, Ruben. You could put that off till later, and oh yeah, that is really bad. Maybe we can think of something, just hang on. Well, anyway, so the brain is trying to protect you, but the Pomodoro says, no, set the timer and get going. And here's the deal. Research shows that if you can get past the first 2 to 3 minutes, your brain shuts down and gets to work.
Right.
It's just the first 2 to 3 minutes that your brain is fighting you on this task. And so you just shut it, you say, okay, no, I'm just going to do 25 minutes, and your brain can handle that and say, okay, it's 25 minutes. I'll give in and I'll work for 25 minutes. And then you give it a break, but you come back and you can do another 25 minutes and then a 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break, or longer break at the end of the third one. But what it is it's work, rest, work, rest, work, rest. And the sheer amount you can get done by putting a bunch of Pomodoros together is significant. And what you have to do, though, is remember to take the breaks, because that's what refreshes your mind and allows you to do something different. When I do the breaks, I often get up and I'll do some exercises and do some things that require me to move. I might go outside and walk, just a real quick walk or something, or I'll do some different kind of exercises that are yoga type things. And then I come back and I get to work. And I can get more done using the Pomodoro than anything else, because it's like we have this natural game in us. It's called beat the clock, and we want to beat the clock, Okay, I can do 25 minutes. It's a game.
Well, I think it works well for sort of how long you can really apply maximum concentration.
Yes. Isn't that nice?
Right, like you can't really be at peak at mental acuity for 3 hours in a row.
You
for
can't.
25 minutes, you can.
You can. And then if you get up and literally, you have to move away from the computer. You can't check email in your 5 minutes. That is not refreshing to your brain. That doesn't allow you to maintain peak performance. You've got to go out, talk to another human being if there's somebody there, and have a nice conversation, laugh a little bit, do something like that, or physically move.
And it ties in nicely also with calendaring, because if you have your 25 minutes and your 5-minute break, well, that's a half hour.
That's a half hour.
2 Pomodoros in an hour, and boom, you can slot that into your schedule, and there you go.
I know. It's wonderful. It's a great strategy to use. I love it, especially if I'm resisting tackling a project that I need to get done. It just gets me through the initial hump that I resist. And I think all of us do,
And I don't do nearly as good a job with it as I should, but thanks for reminding me to get back on the horse. And the other thing I love is at the end, I try to do just a few minutes of exercise like you do. Just do some push-ups or sit-ups or jumping jacks or something silly. And what do you know? You just feel so much better.
I know. We were not meant, our bodies were not designed to sit in front of computers all day long. And that is the reality of the situation. That is why we're struggling, because we weren't designed to do this, period. And so we have to take that into consideration and plan our workday around this kind of thing.
Very good.
Around being human.
I love it. Let's try to live our lives like humans. What a concept, right?
Yeah, that means we have community, and we have relationships with important people in our life, and we don't work on our computers till God knows when and wake up in the morning and start all over again. Honest to God, you have kids, you don't want to be giving them their bath at night and checking your cell phone at the same time. That's not cool. That's like not being a good dad,
That's right. And there are some times when I'm really good at that, and there's some times when I'm not.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge that didn't exist in the same way 10 years ago.
I know.
But now it's here, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, and I think it's been the iPhone came out in 2007, and I think that's when the addiction problem really really took off in our personal life, because the phones before that weren't nearly so cool.
Well, it's funny. I got my first smartphone shortly before my kids were born, and it was a BlackBerry. And it was literally
Oh yeah.
because I wasn't going to be in front of my computer all the time, but I felt I had to be plugged in, which was probably really dumb.
Uh-huh.
And it's only
Hmm.
gotten worse from there in some ways.
Oh, so BlackBerry was when, in early 2000s?
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was like, I don't remember. This was like 2006. I got a BlackBerry,
Okay.
and up until then, I just had a flip phone. And I actually still
Yep.
remember. I remember having this problem back in the late 90s where I had to get work done, and I would leave the office and go to a coffee shop because no one could call me, or and I couldn't get online. Right? Can you believe it?
Yes.
That's
Oh
where
my God. Go
I
to
left the
the shop.
office to get
Nobody
work
can get in
done.
touch with you. Yes.
And I was completely on my own, and I would go sit there when I was like, I need 4 hours where no one's gonna bother me,
Yes.
and I can't be distracted. Now that doesn't work anymore.
No, because you bring your distractions with you,
Right.
don't you? I know. I know. That's what I literally mean, that learning to handle the distractions is probably the key thing that we all need to focus on first, because they're just ubiquitous. They're around us everywhere, every place, everywhere we go. I mean, we can't escape them. We have multiple devices. Um, you know, we're hooked.
Something that you said that was very powerful is sometimes we're so distracted, but we have to remember why we're trying to do something, right? Whether it's a personal reason or professional reason or whatever. There's some higher calling that we're
Yeah.
pursuing that goes beyond whatever the day-to-day, second-to-second
Oh.
distractions are. And that's, I think, how we get rid of the life by default and start with the life by design.
Yeah. Like, what kind of life do you really want to lead? Do you really want to be checking your email at 11 o'clock? Really?
No.
That's pretty stupid, isn't it? I know.
And it's
I know.
funny because one of my rules for this year was I'm going to be done working at 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
which of course I'm not right now.
Oh no, I know. You're like way beyond. We didn't start till 9 o'clock
But
your
there's
time.
wine, so I don't know. This is like a gray area.
And your wife is working tonight, so
Right.
and the kids are in bed?
Kids are in bed, but like last week when kids were sick, I would be working till midnight because I wasn't working during the day.
That's right.
And I'm kind of
And
like,
that's human
that's
too.
okay. I'm
Yeah,
okay with
it
that
is.
as long as it's not a habit.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the default.
Mm-hmm.
Jill, anything else that people should keep in mind?
Oh God, no. There's like a gazillion things people
Buy
should
the
keep
book.
in mind. Yeah. No, I mean, I hate to pitch stuff. I mean, that's not like
I'm
me.
pitching it. Buy the book.
Okay. Thank you. That's nice. Well, anything else people should keep in mind? That time is precious, and that is our one thing that we can control. I mean, the reality is we can control much of our time if we stop and think of it, and if we don't, it just fritters itself away and goes into somebody else's. We do what they want us to do as opposed to doing what really matters to us personally and professionally, and I just. I saw it with myself, and I finally just said, I can't live this way any longer because it's not working. And I would just say to other people, if you're not happy and you're feeling overwhelmed and just don't think that, that you can get it all done. I mean, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to, wake up to a different way of working, a conscious way of working, a way of working that says that I'm going to be in charge and I'm going to design my life the way I want it, as opposed to just, doing what comes at me every day and feels like it should be done.
And I know I'm trying to let you go here, but there's one more great part of the book I have to mention where you talk about creating a don't list and sort of like having a rule that gives you permission to just not deal with certain things that you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
Right? We don't
I
have
don't-
to deal with everything.
No, I don't do certain things, and I'm very deliberate about what I don't do. I don't do a lot. I mean, right now, I don't read a lot of email, and I have become very judicious about what goes in my inbox. I have one of the things I use. Have you tried Unroll.me or SaneBox?
I have not, but I remember your experience from the book about how many newsletters you unsubscribed from. Tell people how many newsletters you had ended up on.
Okay, well, it's been going on for about a year and a half on Unroll.me. And Unroll.me, what they do is anything that has a subscribe or unsubscribe in your email goes into Unroll.me, and every day they send you a thing that says, here's all the newsletters that came in. So it's like a a roll-up of everything. And then it says, do you want to unsubscribe, from any of these? And so you have a choice of unsubscribing, keeping them in your inbox, or keeping them in the roll-up. And since I've been doing this, I have unsubscribed now from over 1,700 newsletters.
So since the book went to print, you were at 900 something. You've had another 800 that were still there. I can't believe how many newsletters
These are
you're on.
new. These are new.
They're new.
And I am not signing up for a lot of things, but people put me on lists,
right?
Or I go to Bed Bath & Beyond and order something online, and suddenly they,
Right.
Or I stay at a hotel at the, Clifton Hotel in San Francisco, and boom, I'm on their list, and they're, after me, and all these people from companies, with all this marketing automation. I'll unsubscribe from Bob at, thiscompany.com, and the next thing you know, I've got an email from Sally at thiscompany.com, and then I have to unsubscribe from her, and some of these emails are coming like once a week, and it's like, just think of all this crap that's in your inbox that's requiring decisions all the time. I mean, it's awful. But I'm at over 1,700 emails that I have unsubscribed from, and these are probably people that are coming into my inbox once a week. That's pathetic. We have to control our time. We can't let those people out there who want our attention, we can't let them have it. They don't deserve it.
And one of the other things I implemented after reading your book, I didn't sign up for SaneBox, but I created a rule in my email that said if it's got an unsubscribe link, just put it in a folder and look at it at the end of the day. And most of them I'm like, you know what? I don't miss this. Unsubscribe.
Yes. Isn't that nice?
And then there's a few that I'm like, hey, I really like this. And now instead of like having to blow through it on the way to 20 others, I actually read it and I get something out of it. What do you know?
I know. I mean, the ones that I really like are still in my inbox. They are. There's a couple I really like. I've unsubscribed from every LinkedIn group I've been part of. I've unsubscribed. I mean, I am out of everything because that eats my time. And I'm subscribed to the things that I want to, where I know that I can learn something. It interests me. It provides value to me. I'll subscribe to that. But boy, too much marketing automation these days.
Well, Jill, thank you so much for making time for us. I know it's precious, and thanks for letting me in the inbox. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Oh, I've tried to delete you as many times as I could. You know that. How many months has it been?
Cheers.
I'm just teasing you. Cheers. It's been fun. Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.